My name's Austin. I'm the founder of Fourth Dimension Wellness. This is our podcast featuring our coach, Brenda. She's our spirituality coach. I've known Brenda a long time. Guys, I would not be here today if it wasn't for Coach Brenda. She has some great practices. She fits this culture and frankly helped me come up with the entire idea. So we're super thankful to have her here today. Coach Brenda is very near and dear to me. I would not be sober here today if she had not intervened in my life way back in the day. I mean that with all sincerity and all honesty. On top of the fact, Brenda has a deep understanding for a lot of the things that I teach and practice today. And she's got a really cool take on spirituality and God. And she's the absolute perfect fit into the 4D culture. And her title as spiritual coach is really kind of all encompassing. She does like so much more than that for us. But she's an open book, and her idea isn't to get you to conform to her way of thinking. Her idea really is just to like open up the doors into new ways of thinking. And let me be very clear, like before we get rolling, because everybody on my team is entitled to their opinion. We're all going to have different opinions. I mean, we have Coach Gill, who is very into the Bible, and we have, all of us have just different takes and different ideas. And so like, let me be very clear, like here at Fourth Dimension Wellness, we really just support like you believing in something. And so like in whichever way we can get that to happen is what we're trying to do here. And so again, I just want to, I got Brett, the breathwork meditation coach, and Coach Brenda, the spirituality coach. Brenda, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Brenda, and I am happy to be here on the 4D team. I've been through my own kind of ups and downs in life, which brought me to really the seat that I'm in today. About a couple years ago, I delved really, really deep into who God is and trying to I'll be honest, like it's one thing that I dove straight into it, but more than anything, it had to find me. And so that's probably something that we might even talk about with one of Brett's topics that he brought up. Mm-hmm. But I definitely, have come to what I believe is the truth for me. I have my own strong spiritual understanding. And, I hope that if I share something today, it might resonate with you or allow you to look at something from a different perspective. I have a background in Catholicism, Christianity. I don't practice either of those anymore, but I do have a very strong spiritual stance. And I wouldn't be here, honestly, today if it wasn't for my spirituality. So,
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had talked earlier, right? And like, I have a bunch of questions in here. I've been just super excited. I think I was telling Dustin on Friday when we were hanging out, like just how pumped I was to have these discussions. And I'm very much a philosophical thinker, so I just like asking questions, and I don't pretend to know the answers to anything. And kind of I guess one of the things that you had said there in your introduction was this is what kind of like worked for you, right? Mm-hmm. And do you believe that that can kind of separate to each individual through time, whether they, and good conversations are always great to have, but whether they think along the same path as you or maybe a little bit deviated, do you believe like whatever works for that person can work for all, or can work, as well as it's worked for you, even if it is like a different path of thinking around certain specific things, which I'm sure we can get into as we move forward. But.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that there's different perspectives that you can look at the same topic as well. There's different, ways to break things down. And if something doesn't resonate with somebody, it doesn't mean that it's not true. I mean, I think that we're all on the path for our own truth, what is true for us. And it might not be true for them in that moment, but 4 or 5 years from now, it might be true for them. And so, I know that there's been, areas along my journey where I would have condemned people that have the thought patterns that I have right now, but I wasn't ready to receive them at that point in my life. I needed to reach a certain type of rock bottom before I could accept what I believe is God into my life. And that is, something that I resisted and fought for a long time.
Cool.
Because you were raised with a very religious background, right?
Yeah, it was more so just like checking boxes. And so, that's what, in my experience, Catholicism was for me. It was, okay, go to church every Sunday, but that's all you do. As long as you check that hour of a box every Sunday, then you're good. As long as you, go to confession once a month, then you're good. And which is actually really interesting. It's something that I've been exploring even deeper and deeper into my spirituality as far as like just processes, because I got really deep into what I consider new age processes, meditation, breath work, affirmations, scripting, state akin to sleep. That's something that a spiritual teacher, Neville Goddard, teaches. And for me, all of those processes can help you get closer to aligning with the person that you want to be. But if you're just doing the processes to check a box without that spiritual understanding of why you're doing it and to bring you closer to who you want to be, then they're just processes and it's not actually going to have an impact. So, it's something where it's like, we all want things in life. We all have desires, but, are you doing to get? Because if you do to get, you're going to keep doing to get, and you're not going to receive anything. So you have to realize that you already are, become it, and then do the processes to remind you of who you already are.
Woo!
That was a tangent.
I love it, though. I love it. Hey, go like this. You got something underneath your eye. Perfect.
One of the things there too that I heard, and it was something through, again, like deep dives in, man, I don't even know what I would circle. I also grew up Catholic, right? But I don't know what I would even explain how I go about things, more so that I'm just an open book to listening to these things, and not like the funny thing is I'm listening to you, Brenda, right? And like previously I would have heard somebody explain something and shut it off and like at a certain point in time and been like, no, that's wrong.
Right.
And I'm not going to listen anymore. Right. And like, that's just not what happens today. And I don't know why, like you said, right. You hit a certain point, whether it was me having to go through treatment or any of those things, but like it hit a point where I cracked, and I'm seeking to keep that crack open, right? Mm-hmm. So I can continue to accept other forms of spirituality or anything along those lines. And I kind of just went down that little bit of a offshoot, but like to get to, I guess my question for you would be the theology behind religion, mm-hmm. right? I very much so like the stories. We were actually talking about this earlier, right? Because again, theology is just, in my mind, nothing but philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of questions to be asked, a lot of stories to be told, talking parables and all of that type of stuff to teach lessons. And if you can accept that with that open crack or that open heart or that open mind, I think people can learn things from them. Do you think that like the theology behind the religious structures that have popped up through time, mm-hmm. whatever it looks like, do you think that there's also usefulness for people behind them if they can kind of get through that built structure of, again, I'm not trying to attack anyone's religion or anything like that, but the structures that we talk about and like how kind of deviated from the path of like you were talking about checking boxes, right? Well, as long as you're going to church, a Christmas, Easter, right? Yeah. Making sure that you're doing your first or your confirmation and your first whatever it is, the confession and all that stuff. As long as you're checking all these boxes, like you're gonna be fine. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I'm growing up around, not so much my parents or anything like that, but like I saw people in my life checking all those boxes, but the in between was not kind of aligning with what I'm sitting down and being pontificated to, right? By somebody standing on some altar. And again, not a shot at priests or rabbis or anything like that, but like I just saw through the community, it was like, again, like a lot of box checking. But I guess my question is like the theology behind the structure. Do you think that there's like a lot to be learned through what we read or anything like that?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I think that, again, this is just based off of my experience, and, others that I'm in community with, but in my experience, theology is kind of a stepping stone to, opening your eyes to a greater reality beyond what our senses, beyond this physical reality. And, everybody's yearning for that spiritual substance. Everybody's thirsty for it, which is, where theology and religions kind of birth from. And I feel like a lot of religions have become more politicalized. Did I say that word right?
Yeah, sure.
And more so based off of, making money or, trying to control the masses. And, but that being said, if I didn't have that baseline of going through certain, theological teachings, then I wouldn't have been able to get brought to where I am right now, where I am today. Right. And so for that reason, I'm thankful for it, because I had this baseline of, recognizing, well, wait a second, this doesn't make sense, asking questions kind of, along the journey. And then, I'm a strong believer that ask and you will receive. Believe that you believe you've already received and you will be given. And I may have messed up those scriptures, but my whole point is, I was so dead set on, looking back, again, this is hindsight's 2020, because you don't know necessarily everything you're creating from an unconscious state while you're creating it. And hindsight, I was creating this reality of learning who God was, because I was consistently seeking and asking questions. And so, but God always says yes. And when we think that God doesn't always say yes, then we are, in my experience, again, still asleep, because we're not, practicing that gratitude and recognizing the consciousness that we are. So I say all this because, I lost my train of thought.
No, so like,
I was going somewhere with this.
Welcome to the club. Well, first of all, there's like 100 things so far in the last two dialogues you've said that like I want to ask questions specific to. And so like, let's just rewind just a second. And you said like, we're still asleep and like we can't create from the unconscious state. Can you explain more like what you mean like we're still asleep?
So when I say asleep, I mean you're creating everything unconsciously, because everything in our physical world is a manifestation from our minds, from our consciousness. And until I, went back, for example, how I believe I received God in my life, I was unconsciously believing and seeking for it. And so there was this constant awareness on God, but I didn't know what that was. And so wherever you put your awareness is where you're essentially creating your own reality. And so that's where I was consistently like putting my awareness on what God was. And so I eventually kind of came to this realization of, oh, okay, it's, I am awareness, my state of being, my, the Jesus Christ within me. And so what was your question again?
So when you're asleep.
Yeah. So I feel like being asleep really just means you're creating unconsciously. To be awakened would be to understand that I am the sole creator of my reality through my thoughts and in my assumptions about who I believe I am. And so it's hard for us to kind of see the correlation until you kind of look back and really have a true assessment on, where you are, why you're in there. But for me, I mean, I prayed to a God, for, probably, really my whole life. But for the example that I'm talking about, where I was really seeking and looking for who God was, I was praying to a God outside of me for answers like, dear God, help me. Jesus, help me. Dear God, help me. And because I was not, I didn't have my awareness on the gratitude and piece of fulfillment of already having it, what I wanted, I just kept creating more of it. And so, that's why I think that like when you are in a really low spot, it's challenging to dig yourself out of it, or it can appear challenging to dig yourself out of it, but it's only because you continue to create more and more and more of that.
Right.
And you don't realize that you're creating more and more and more of it because you want to blame everything else.
Right.
You want to blame the people around you, the circumstances that you've been given, what you grew into, other things. You don't want to blame yourself. You don't want to look inside. And so to be awakened is to really recognize that, okay, I'm going to take full ownership. I'm going to stop being the victim. I'm going to take full ownership of everything in my life, the good and the bad, and recognize that, okay, if I'm able to claim that power, then I can, put my awareness on the good that I want to create, same as how I did put my awareness on the bad that I was creating. And we can get into a whole topic on judging things as good and bad as well, but I'm sure you guys have some things to say about that.
You know exactly where I was thinking there. Talking about the good and the bad.
We like that topic too, but no, that's so well said, right? And I practice and teach, very similar, but you said it a lot more eloquently than I think I've ever been able to put to words. So, but it is true, right? It's absolutely true. And I sort of touch on this all the time, how brain heart coherence and the law of attraction, and this visualization and this manifestation, how they're all kind of intertwined. And sort of what you're talking about, right, is like you concentrate on the bullshit, you manifest more bullshit, right? And it just seems to spiral that way. And if you can pause, reflect, look inward, pick a new direction and a new aim and focus on the good. And like you just said, place your presence where your awareness is, or how do you say it? Awareness. In other words, focus on the fucking good, right? And redirect the path. You can really start to manifest anything you want. And it's beautiful. Yeah.
So one of the things too is I'll kind of take exactly what you had just said, focusing on the bullshit. My look at it is focusing on as bullshit. So there's all of these things that circumstances are just part of life, right? Like they pop up in life. And one of the things that I've grown to understand about myself is my perspective of all of these things. So it kind of reminds me of the Chinese parable about the Chinese farmer, where it's like all of these things are kind of happening. I couldn't verbatim say exactly what it is, but it's basically like this good thing happens and these people are like, oh, well, this is good. And he's like, could be, could not be. Right. And then this bad thing happens and could be, could not be. Yeah. Right. And instead of and I do understand, right, focusing on the bullshit, but focusing on something as bullshit. Right. So when you had brought up the good and evil thing, focusing on something as evil versus focusing on something as good, or focusing on something as just a happening or just something and an opportunity. And that's where my perspective in my brain started to shift, is that all of these things, everything I have, whether it's waking up in the morning to some crazy shit that went down, like cars broken into or something like that. It's just and again, it's hard to sift through it, right? You really have to sit, and this is where the prayer and the meditation comes back to seeing that piece of you that you were talking about, that Jesus Christ within you, or that divine section within you, to understand that nothing's there's no one for me, again, this is all for me, right? No one's playing me as a game of chess to be like, I'm going to put you in this tough situation and deal with it, right? Like, and sometimes I don't put myself in a tough situation. I sure as shit did for like 25 years, put my own self in some bad situations and then tried to blame it on everybody else. And then even when these like little things would happen, like the broken into car, a flat tire or whatever, I was like, I literally remember sitting back being like, the universe is attacking me. Right. And like, that's one of the most selfish, self-centered, crazy ideas ever. When in reality, the universe is just giving me an opportunity, right? Whatever that opportunity is. And like, I might not like the opportunity, but like, that's not the point of the opportunity. The point of the opportunity is to grow. And through whatever it is, through, man, I got to do this shit in the rain now, or uncomfortableness, right? Like, life can get really uncomfortable, right? Like, and I think life gives me personally, Brett, the opportunity to continue to grow on the other side of that uncomfortableness. But if I start out by looking at something as bullshit, I will continue to carry that into the law of attraction and all that. So then everything will just constantly look like bullshit in my life.
Yeah. When you say looking as it, you mean like identifying with it, yeah.
Yeah. So like just anything that would pop, like the whole idea that could be or could not be, right?
Yeah.
Like something that everybody else on the outside would be like, that's awesome that happened to you, Brenda. And you attach to the good behind it because others give you that good, right? Or because society gives you that good, instead of viewing it as something in your life to gain as some sort of opportunity to push through to the other side. Because, dude, if we attach to the good in our life, that can also not be the healthiest thing as you continue to move forward in life, because then all of a sudden your expectation is that everything's good, everything should be good, and then something pops up in your life and you're not prepared for it. You're not prepared for the uncomfortableness of people telling you it's bad. And again, just my view.
The old yin yang, right? Like, you can't have the good without the bad, and even in the good is the bad.
Same coin, right?
Circle back all the way around to like what is good and what is bad, and
do they even exist?
Yeah.
But how do you even know what the good is unless you've experienced the bad?
Exactly.
You know? So you have to go experience the bad in order to.
Such a beautiful place for drug addicts and alcoholics to be in. Man, I tell this, I'm very blessed to get to speak a lot, and it's such a fucking blessing to have been through some shit. Because, like, dude, today, for the most part, if I can get centered and show some gratitude, man, the world just shows up as rainbows and butterflies half the time. If I can remember where I've been and the struggle I've seen, and everybody has this. This isn't specific to drug addicts and alcoholics. It's just more obvious and more, everyone sees it, right? So you're placed in this position where, dude, you're fucking ruining your life. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees it. You've lost your job. And so, like, your struggle is more apparent. And so we're placed in this beautiful situation where, like, we're almost forced into, like, looking inward and changing and, like, reflecting and, like, becoming a better person. Whereas, man, other people who have different struggles, you know, gambling, porn addiction, technology addiction, self-crisis, they kind of do that quietly and alone. And so they're not thrust into these situations where they're forced to look inward. And, you know, sometimes I really look back with gratitude that, like, dude, shooting dope in your neck is a real obvious thing, right? People really know you're fucked off when that's happening. And so, like, I had no way around it, right? Like, when you give yourself jaundice, like, it's obvious. And so, like, it's very clear you have to change something. And I think drug addicts and alcoholics are placed in this super, super, just, I hate to say it, because I you know, people early in recovery are going to fucking hate this sentence. But like a very lucky situation.
You're
right?
in a blessed situation.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, but we're not going to see it that way.
Yeah.
Of course not. Right. Like, and dude, I get that 100%. And everybody around me is not going to bring me that clarity or awareness. And you can tell me whatever you want to tell me. I'm not going to listen to you, because this is the worst thing in my life. I have burnt everything down. But as you step further and further and further away from it, it starts to look like that Chinese parable where it's like, could be or could not be. And if you can do that in the moment, wow. But, like, I don't really know many people that can, because, like you had said too, Austin, like, you need that to even know what good looks like in your life.
Yeah. And for the longest time, man, I didn't think good was possible. You know what I mean? It seemed way out of reach. And super thankful. I mean, shit, dude, we're three of us sitting around a table having a conversation about different forms of God, basically. Like, never in a million years, right? Did I think like, one, I'd be able to sit at a table with another human being without 3 or 4 substances in my body. The only time I ever interacted with people with, I had a chemical to back up a chemical, another chemical, and a low dose of alcohol, right? And that was the only way I could converse. And I thought it made me smarter. I thought it made me more approachable. I thought it made me cooler and funner. And like, the truth is today, like, completely sober, while I still lose my train of thought constantly, I'm more coherent and I'm much more at peace and calm. There's like 4 cameras around us and microphones. Like, this whole thing is very uncomfortable. And like, if it wasn't for my sobriety, it would never be possible. I don't care how much heroin you got. Like, I'm not sitting here having a conversation about this. Like, no way. And then you're posting on the internet. Get out of here. Hell no. Right?
Yeah, because you're already. I mean, you're in a bubble of judgment as is, right? So like, you're judging yourself constantly. Therefore, anything that comes out of your mouth, like Brenda or Brett, what are they thinking about me? Like, you can't even stumble through a conversation like that where you're just like, what are they thinking about me?
Right.
What are they thinking about me? And then, like you said, add this and Dustin and we're going to post this on this. And it's like, oh my God, I'm frozen.
I better say something cool.
Yeah, right. And then the whole time, then you watch it back and you're like,
and then you realize, like, when you fall into the zone that like, and you just lead like a God focused conversation and you leave room for everyone's interpretation, like, it just flows really naturally. And Brenda, I want to go back. So you, as always, mentioned like 10 things I don't really know, which is why you're the spirituality coach and I'm just Austin. You talked about Neville Goddard in your first example. You said breathwork, meditation, gratitude, affirmations, and then you mentioned Neville Goddard has like a practice or for processes or something.
Yeah, so it's called state akin to sleep, and the essential idea.
You say that slower.
State akin to sleep.
State akin to sleep.
Yeah, so it's a process of essentially right before you go to bed, when you're in that kind of half sleepy, wakeful state, where you basically have your imaginal scene that you replay in your mind and you basically fall asleep to it. The idea behind that is that you are able to basically imprint your subconscious mind into it. And honestly, that wasn't one that really worked for me. Either when when I go to bed, I'm either out and I don't even have time to do that because I fall asleep before I can, or I will be just ruminating thoughts and I'll just be like, fuck this, I don't have time for state akin to sleep, when I actually need it more than any other time. So anyways, but yeah, that's a process that you can use to help you kind of center yourself.
So another teacher you turned me on to a while ago, Dr. Joe Dispenza, kind of talks about something similar to that. And he talks about like meditating until you're into like those delta and theta brain waves where you can access like the multidimensional platform. And then you can sort of manifest like whatever it is you're thinking or dreaming or, and what he talks about too is drawing in like a very clear intention of where you're trying to go and like what it looks like and like what the goal is. And then attaching like this elevated emotion to it. And, I think you're saying the exact same thing. I think you actually taught me what I just said. Yeah. So you're like, yeah, dummy.
No, not at all.
But it's, for me, holy hell does that work. But no, I couldn't do it laying down. By the time I get in bed, bro, bye, goodbye. Yeah. So I have to do it. I do it early in the mornings, like 3, 4 a.m. When I'm meditating, I'm still kind of half asleep, and it's pretty easy, I think, to access those zones. Although sometimes I think I'm just sitting there just daydreaming. It's hard to know exactly if you're doing it right. But like Brett always points out, right? Like, practice it regardless, right?
And that's exactly what the Joe Dispenza thing that you just explained, right? Like, man, it sounds like an efforted practice, right? Like, I'm going to go to the gym and I have this laid out thing to do. Like, that's exactly what you're doing. It just happens to be in your mind. And it's something you guys were talking like that. Stay akin to sleep.
State akin to sleep.
State akin to sleep. So, awesome. We were actually just, again, talking about this on Friday, but like those meditations that I would have where I started to become akin to not steal that phrase, but like to an animal in my And that's kind of what happened, right? I would become that animal. It would shift around and I would press forward into whatever was happening in my subconscious brain. And it wasn't something that I'm not going to lie. It wasn't something that I sat here and like, I'm going to practice this. It came to be. And for whatever reason, my mind would sit me in that space. Right in that space before I fell asleep, or being able to be pulled out of it. Austin, we talked about the first time when you had come out on the deck, and I just didn't move, and I was just like laid out in meditation. But I knew you were there. I was completely aware that Austin was there. I heard him walking on the thing, but I was somewhere else mentally. Right, physically I was right there, but mentally I was in some other space. I can't explain any of this, but it just sounds like a little bit similar, right? And for whatever reason, I'm very big on nature. I love animals, all types of animals. I'm a little afraid of spiders, but we can work with that, right? But like, and so I wonder if because I have that, right, and somebody else probably has their own personal experience in this dimension, right, that they attach to, right? Animals just happens to be my nature, that type of stuff. So I wonder if like I identify as that owl or as the wolf or as these things, and then what would happen is it would shift around and I would be going through like the eyes of the wolf, right? So like the wolf would take me through a run through these things, and as this is happening, right, I'm running through the forest or whatever it is, these ideas start to pop in my head, and like you know what I mean, and like I have these things about like whether I'm asking questions about some sort of fearful interaction that I have, or what to do at work, or all these things, and these questions are all being answered for me. My problem is stamping those to where when I come, because usually that'll happen, and then I step away, I lay down, and I go to sleep, right? And like what I need to start doing, and this is an own personal practice that I'm putting out here, is probably start to write after that. Right. But like, because I need to stamp it as to like these questions that are being answered, and this internal deep thing that I have that's answering it for me, which I happen to call God, right? And God shows up in these like really fucking cool ways, man. Really like, hey, bro, I know you really like animals, especially wolves. I'm going to show up like a wolf, and we're going to do this, and this is fun, right? And it's all happening in my mind. And again, it is a practice. It is like me going to the gym. It just happens to be in here while I'm sitting in a chair or laying on a mat or something like that.
Yeah, dude. So one of the things we do, and we all have our different roles. And one of the things that I do is routines with our guys, and part of our morning routine and our PM routine, they kind of bleed together with the meditation piece. And there's a journal that I have the guy sit next to him, so that like when an answer comes to you, like it's okay to end your meditation and write it down, because you will forget. And like I have literally like this company is built around things that came to me in meditation, like hands down from start to finish. It's like, oh shit, that's the answer. And like, I'll stop meditating, which I don't know if is good or bad, but it's what I do. But I come out of it with like a newfound, like, the answers are always within. Like I already knew the answer, or whatever just happened, right? And I found it just by shutting up long enough to receive it. And when that starts to piggyback, and you start to have this journal just filled with answers, you're like, man, I talk too much, I think, right? And like, it's a beautiful thing too, to know, like, especially if I find myself just running around in circles and I just like can't seem to catch my own tail, and I'm just like blah blah blah, and it just like it all becomes too much, right? And I'm like blah 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 blah, and then I just hit the brakes and I'm just like phone off, everything down, nothing. I'm meditating, and I'll meditate, find an answer, go back to meditate, find another answer, and then I'll come out of it with like, all my problems are solved. And like all it took was me to just shut up long enough to like listen. Yeah,
you can only find God in stillness, because that's when, you're able to listen and hear and speak. And it's really kind of magical, because I know when I'm, have episodes of anxiety or what if, it's like, I'm not being still, like be still and know I am God. I mean, that isn't scripture. It's, I don't know. It just helps to recenter me.
Oh, cool. So I don't know much about the Bible, but be still and know that I am God. Your interpretation of that, can we go back to that?
Yeah.
You're saying consciousness, right? Is that what you're talking about?
So I'm talking like, so if we go back into scripture even a little bit more, as I think it's John 1:1, it says, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and it was with God, or something of the sort. Well, what is the Word? The Word is Jesus Christ. But what does Jesus Christ represent? Jesus Christ represents your I am awareness, your awareness of being. And so when you're being still, you're able to pay attention to where your awareness is. And so when you recognize that your awareness, your imagination is the only reality, which makes, you know, this business 4D wellness even that much more amazing and magical, because it is, you know, it is reality. I mean, our 4D consciousness, our imaginations, our, you know, once again, our Jesus Christ within us, our I am awareness, it's all the same thing. And so, but, you know, it's, reality shows up to who we're being. So it's not that, oh, I had a thought like, oh, I want pizza, and then pizza shows up. It's like,
That'd be cool, though.
I know. It's more like, okay, I am being the person that has pizza. Then the pizza shows up.
All right.
So it doesn't like, you know, show you what you want, but it shows you who you are conscious of being.
And to be the person who has pizza, you have to do a little bit of legwork too.
Oh,
to
yeah.
action,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so,
Yeah, it takes repetition and consistency and persistence, because, you know, I mean, it depends how far off you are from that version. You know, I mean, if you are, I don't know, eating 20 donuts a day and you're saying, I want to be healthy. I mean, yeah, you could technically stop cold turkey and then be the version of you that's healthy and start, you know, eating salads and, you know, go straight paleo every single day. But generally speaking, there's some layers of the ego that has to come off to recognize that, hey, you can be that person. You can, you know, go there in consciousness first, and then trust that that power within you will, you know, crafts the means to the end. So all you have to worry about is like where the end of where you're going. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get there. Like, well, how am I going to get there when I eat 20 donuts a day and, you know, I can't, you know, eat healthy because, you know, they make up all these reasons, you know, why somebody can't eat healthy.
I do know why. I hear those reasons a lot.
All right. Well, I mean, but that's the thing. Like, I mean, everybody has different obstacles. That's just one example. And we all craft up these reasons in our minds why we can't be that person. Whereas like the person standing next to you will be like, oh, that's easy. You know, just do that, this, and this. But for one specific person, that could be really, really, really hard. And so you have to, you know, practice going in there with awareness, like say, no, you know, and when your ego says, no, you're not that, quiet that fucking thing down and say, no, I am that. I am that. I am that. I am that. Go there in consciousness over and over and over again. And then eventually those layers come off and it makes the, you know, you're not having to physically like will your way there. It's more of a mental, mental game of like conviction, really.
So one of the things too that you talked about the barrier and the eating 20 donuts a day and stuff like that, and kind of what I heard, and please correct me, send me down the avenue that maybe I'm wrong with, but so like not only this is who I want to be over and over again, right? Whether it be healthy with the salad or not shooting dope in my neck, right? Like seriously,
That's
right?
ideal.
But like, do you believe that the barriers that are built are not only the inaction that we take, or whether it be that I'm not bringing myself to that awareness, right? Or whether I'm not having those to be still, right? And all of those things, but also the substance itself, whether it be a donut or things like that. Do you think that helps build the barrier just as much as like us not having that internal work? So like the chemical structure of what dope can do to the brain, or what dope can do to the brain, if you're talking about a donut, right? Like it's all the same thing. It's shooting off all of these things that kind of takes us to an area where we build circumstance in our brain to say that, well, you know, it's just easier to say like, no, I'm not going to be able to be that healthy person.
Yeah. So I don't know if I fully understood your question, but I have a few kind of areas that I can go with, little snippets that I heard. So, you know, in my experience, going there in consciousness and, you know, having that burning desire comes from the heart. Okay. And so you have this burning desire coming from your heart space, and your heart is truth. It knows. And, you know, then you accept that into your mind as a reality. And if you can think it, then it exists somewhere in some parallel universe. You're probably already that person. So you want to experience it in this lifetime. So how do you get there? You know, first, acknowledging and accepting that your imagination and that fourth dimensional reality in your mind is reality. And it's, you know, then, you know, once you kind of accept that and replay it over and over, any action you're taking, it becomes inspired action. So inspired action isn't something that you have to like put a lot of stress and focus and struggle to do, because we've all, you know, done things in our life that have been very hard. You know, there's been things where it's like, well, gosh, in order to get there, I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to have to do this, and then I'm going to have to do this. And it takes a lot of struggle and effort to get there. But inspired action, you know, in my experience and also in my understanding, it comes from, you know, basically your power within you guiding you. So that way it's not something, it's just like second thought. You don't think twice about it. It's just like, okay, this is the path. Like, I know this is the path. I didn't, you know, and it becomes easier. So I feel like once you kind of go there in consciousness, the will, the means, wait, what's the verbiage here? It creates kind of the path for you.
Okay. That makes sense. And one of the things, I guess what I was kind of trying to ask is like, we can fall off of that beam, right? So like
all the time,
right? So like, what if I fall off into a plate of donuts? Do you know what I mean? Like, does that rebuild that barrier type of thing is kind of where I was going.
So everything's a choice. And so if you want to choose the reality where you fell off and that barrier is rebuilt, then you can choose that reality. Or you can recognize that, okay, I fell off. It's just a circumstance.
Yeah.
Circumstances are circumstances, but I know who I am.
Gotcha.
And then just continue to move forward. Because the second you attach to that circumstance or that thing that happened to you or the thing that you did, then you are putting your focus and awareness on that thing that you did, not the person that you're wanting to become. And so it's kind of like a expenditure inside your mind. Like, are you going to waste those thoughts, that mental energy and brain power towards a mistake that you made? And you certainly can. Everything is a choice, but you know, or you can choose wisely, and it's not always easy. Believe me, I'm not saying this is easy shit. I'm saying that, you know, through repetition, everything should become easier. And, you know, the first time you might, you know, also in my experience, I'm not really talking about donuts, but we'll just keep the donut analogy here. In my experience, you know, you fall off and you eat 20 donuts and you attach to that. And it's like, fuck. And for me, it would last like a week. And then it happens again. And then it would last maybe 5 days. And then, you know, where you basically believe that you are that circumstance. And so, but when you recognize and, you know, and remove yourself that you are not your circumstances, you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings, you are so much greater than that. You are the awareness in which all takes place. And it's consistently reminding yourself of that. And so, because we've been asleep for so long, and when you wake up, it's like, okay, like I do have a choice. I'm not bound by my conditions. I'm not bound by my circumstances.
Okay. Yeah, like all I heard there too with like the thought thing is you're going to fall. Right. Yeah. Like that's what I heard. Right.
Yes.
It will absolutely happen.
Yes.
But if you allow it to squander your thought pattern, like you're going to get away from who you are, what is intended, and what you've come to your absolute reality as. Right. So, and I think one of the things too that's so big in the meditation and kind of the reading that you sent me to get more clarity and understanding around things is to understand that this divine piece in you can tell you who you absolutely are 100% to set out that path for you.
It 1,000% does, but it takes almost being quiet. For me, at least, I had to be quiet my mind in order to understand and hear that divine message. And sometimes it's louder, but I do feel like it comes from your heart space and, like your true heart's desires. And that's how it speaks.
Yeah. And I think that's what, right. Like, I believe I've said before, and you might've heard this as well. Like the brain's a great tool, but a bad master. Right. And and when, it's like one of the most like logical thinking type of things, but think with your heart, right? I remember being told this when I was younger, and it's just like, what, like, okay, like I would just say okay as like a 10-year-old, or right, not really understanding what it meant, right? But like that divine peace that you do feel the answers come from the gut, right, or what your gut tell you, or something like that, and then it comes up kind of through the brain and through the mouth, and your ego and your brain can deceive you to say that was me, right? When in reality it was God, or whatever spirit or whatever it is, that divine, the Jesus Christ within, all of those things. And one of the things that you had said in a different way that I heard it is, to hear God, you absolutely have to be out of your mind. Right. And he did it in a tongue-in-cheek way, obviously, but that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
To hear that divine peace within me, I have to be outside of my mind. And the only way for me personally that I can get outside of my mind is when I'm slipped into a meditation and I'm literally a wolf or an owl. As crazy as that sounds, it's absolute fact to me, that I'm not this meat suit.
Yeah.
Right. I don't feel that anyway.
Yeah,
and I'm out of it. And if I was to sit there and tell a psychiatrist or something hey, I'm an owl. And, and I just fly around and I hoo from here to there and stuff someone's going to be you're kind of crazy, dude. So that aligns with the idea that to be with God or to be closer to God. Again, my experience that I need to be out of my mind. And when I'm out of my mind, that's how I feel.
Yeah. And to what Austin brought up earlier, as far as the Dr. Joe teachings and meditations, he teaches to be in nobody, nowhere, no place, no time, that place of complete blackness where there's infinite possibilities. And that's, you either find God when you're vibrating so fast that it's essentially a straight line and it's, looks flat, or when you are so low, which I think that probably everybody in the room here has probably found God when they were so low. But that's the thing. Once you do that, then you can connect with God again in that stillness of, being in nowhere, no place, no time, nobody, no thing, which is essentially meditation.
Cool. And there's, meditation, I talk with a lot of people, and Brett does this a lot more than I do, but the practice of meditation kind of ties in with everything you guys are saying about so how do I apply this, right? How do you apply this? And for me, guys, some mornings, my meditation is extremely hard to become nowhere, no thing, no time. To drop it all and become just pure consciousness is an extremely difficult task for me sometimes. But it goes back to not identifying with the 20 donuts, right? The more I can get rid of my body, the time, my agenda, my to-do list, my thoughts, that person who pissed me off, the more I can get all that out of, and they'll come to me in my meditation, and my job is to just let them pass through and come back to nothing. And so that practice of becoming the consciousness and becoming behind the scenes, right? Become the thinker or the guy watching the thinker, right? The pure consciousness, that practice of being that person demonstrates throughout all my day when I have real life interactions with other people, right? When someone pisses me off and I don't respond in anger, when something doesn't go my way and I don't get all sullen about it, when I can go through my day, like Brenda was just talking on, if we rewind 5 minutes, that minute and a half right there was beautiful. If if I can practice those things in my meditation and then take those things into my day, I show up as a completely different person for myself and for everyone around me. And fucking A, dude, that was such a huge piece for me to realize like I'm not these circumstances. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not even these actions, right? I'm behind all that. And, what a relief for the drug addict and alcoholic who's done nothing but cause wreckage and do terrible things and have fucked up thoughts, and who has a ego this big and a self-esteem this big all in one, right?
The one of the things I think I believe you were saying it earlier, but like how, man, early on, like going into recovery, right? Like I absolutely feel blessed that I was able to do that. And I know that there's people out there that don't struggle with something like alcohol and drugs, that you have other people around you that are like, hey, you have to go into this scenario to get this stuff straightened out, right? I absolutely feel blessed. And I'm like, the gratitude that fills my heart besides the absolute fear that did when I first walked in, right? And it's because I was then given this opportunity for however many days it might be, right? Whether it be 30, whether it be 60, whether it be 90 and all that stuff, to absolutely mine my soul of all of that stuff, right? And to, whether you get clear of it or however you want to say it, right? But I was able to find pieces of me to like, I explain it to people that I talk to like a muddied mirror. If you can imagine taking like a wet paper towel or whatever to a muddied mirror, like really muddy mirror, and like, you're not washing the paper towel off. You're just going like this. You're just going to continue to smear that mud usually all around. It's not going to lop most of it up, maybe some of it, that type of stuff. But what I look at it as is like I was able to get clear enough to where I could see through that mud in the mirror to really find pieces of me inside, and absolutely meditation, these type of discussions, getting honest about like how I felt, like that was the whole thing. It's like I don't want to talk about God or even listen to you about God or any of these different scenarios or philosophies or conversations that you can have around it to even be like, that makes some sense. And like, that is, in my opinion, again, a part of the seeking, right? Is that like having these type of conversations, continuing to then put some of the stuff that you're talking about, or Joe Dispenza's talking about, or Goddard, right?
Neville Goddard. Yeah.
So like putting some of those things in practice, right? Like that is part of the seeking. And man, when I'm seeking that peace within me, I'm not seeking to start a fight with you. I'm not thinking about my fear. I'm not thinking about 20 donuts. I'm not thinking about heroin in my neck. I'm not thinking about sitting at the bar drinking my whatever away. Like because this stuff interests me, and like those moments that I'm sure all of us have had, whether it be in meditation or you see a sunrise or a sunset and it just hits you different, right? Like something that you feel, again, not in your head, but in your heart. And it's like, oh, there's that mouthpiece for God again. And it comes from time to time. I wish it was all the time. That would be great, right? But like, then again, we kind of talked about, once you feel that all the time, you know, those moments in time or those moments in whatever this is aren't going to be as beautiful as they can be, whether it be those sunsets, the sunrises, or those. It almost feels like a moment of clarity in meditation. I don't know about y'all, but like that's what it feels like. Like I figured out a problem real quick. It's a very small one, like maybe 1 + 1, but like I figured something out. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, dude. It's yeah. Whew.
Shit, man.
That was beautiful.
What else, guys? Where do we go?
How long have we been going?
You're 55.
Okay.
So, about an hour. Anything else we want to?
I have all the questions in the world, but I couldn't even remember any of them, dude.
We had some pretty good discussion. What else you got there, Brett?
The thing that we talked about at lunch, actually, that really interests me, and that's what I was trying to remember, right, is the universal experience versus the individual experience. Not so much aligned with what we were discussing, which was like the the Holy Trinity and stuff like that. But like, what do you believe connects the universal experience? And this is how I'll bring it up, I guess, in a better fashion instead of just throwing words out there and be like, here's the question, right?
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So the universal experience in my summation, right, is like this idea that we're all connected, right? And we're all connected by, again, my thought pattern is that divine peace within inside. But then me as an individual, Brenda as an individual, Austin, Dustin as individuals also have their own personal experience. And then there's something like, I guess like that third part, which when we were talking about, I said like the Holy Spirit that connects us all. Again, not really the whole I'm trying to go down to, but what is your outlook on like a universal experience versus like clearly each individual in this room on this planet have their own spiritual, personal experience, individual experience.
Yeah. So, and honestly, this kind of merges well with the the lecture I sent you guys. So
your homework.
No, I mean, I was just going to touch some points with that. So, I feel like the universal experience and the personal, let me rewind. I feel like it's a very personal experience. And what makes it a universal experience or a experience of oneness is the fact that we all came down from the same source. And so we're having these individual experience of God is experiencing himself through us and as us. And he's just having a ball. He's just here for the experience.
Playing a game, right?
Like good, bad, or indifferent. He's neutral. Like he doesn't judge good or bad. But he came down. So the fall of the serpent, where he decided to come down and put himself in man, and man, knowing all the limitations of man and recognizing that he made that choice. And so he came down, broke himself up into infinite, basically gods, and is allowing us to go through life with our own free will, make our own choices, and have this personal experience of what we call life, but then recognize when he awakens himself within us of realizing, oh shit, I have a lot more ability to choose than I thought I did. And it's a really uplifting experience, a very scary experience. It can be a little bit of both, a very, just like the duality of just this whole entire life. But I mean, it's, for that reason, how can we each be living in our own realities and have the all of God within us, the infinite of God within us, and have basically my desires or my free will not conflict with your free will. And so the only answer in my understanding of this is that this three-dimensional reality is basically an illusion. It's like my play is different from your play. So I'm perceiving something and there's multiple infinite different parallel realities. And when we collide on those on the same reality, it's because I'm choosing the same reality that you are. And so we're having this experience because God is infinite. And so there has to be infinite different experiences. And, because he wants to experience himself as everything, everywhere, all at once, he can't put any limitations on anybody's free will. And that's how we're able to have anything that we essentially want, but we just don't believe we can have it.
Yeah. And that's just beautifully said, because like I might've brought this up before, but there's a writing by a gentleman called G.K. Chesterton, and he talks about the million masks of God. And that's kind of like what he gets down to, is that like we're all manifestations of the creator of what it is, and along with like, and man, you hear it in like, I'm sure you guys did too, right? I know Austin and I are big Deadheads, and like that was my time frame. I was always talked about how about like growing up in the hippie culture and stuff like that, and they were like, we're all one, and like you know, loving trees and stuff like that. Like I absolutely believe that too, right? That's God experiencing himself as a tree, right? As crazy as that sounds, but that what it is. And like, man, I remember having some interesting experiences with trees, right? Where like it felt like they were talking, right? And like these things, and like
They probably were.
Right? But like, but the thing is, right, as I step away from that personal experience, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows what I'm talking about, but like I step away from that, and then it's funny, like I'll have these offhand conversations with Destiny, like when we're outside at back and the breeze is blowing, and I'm like, and she'll start to talk to me, I'm like, hold on. And she's like, what? And I'm like, they're talking to us. And like, you know what I mean? And it's like it's not like I'm not being funny. It's not like I'm not remembering that individual experience that happened. It is now just kind of part of me to sit there and listen to the trees kind of tickle the leaves and stuff like that, because like that's how it feels to me. They're saying something, right? I don't understand it, right?
You don't speak tree?
I don't speak tree, right? Maybe a little bit of oak, but but like, you know, I think what's being said to me, right, is to shut up and listen. And that's it. Listen to what surrounds you, and be open to it, because it's all God, whether it be, Olive's out there, my dog, right? Like there's numerous times, I'm not going to get into it very deeply, but like, that she did some things that saved my life, man. And like, she's just a dog, right? And that's how it would be said. But she did some things that maybe she previously would not have done. And her face is what brought me back from certain ledges, right? And like, that's a million mask of God, right? Like that is God showing up in my life in the strangest of places, right? Like, and that's like, it's a wild thing to think and look back at, and yeah, like you said, like he's just having fun, right? Like she, him, whatever, is just having fun, kind of showing up in this experience through us, through the trees. And I mean, I could go further down this rabbit hole, right? And be like all the energy that we input into things that we build, and right, like, and like having the idea that God has been interjected into those things. So don't disrespect people's property, and don't disrespect the things that they build, and art that's put out, and music that's put out, and writings, and all of this type of stuff. It's just all this injection of God through God.
Yeah. Nailed it. Yeah. That was beautiful.
God, the more you see God in everything. I remember early in sobriety, I'm introduced with this idea that, hey, dude, maybe you suck at running your life, right? And so what we're going to do is get someone else to run your life, and we're going to call it God. And I'm like, dude, listen, I have scar tissue on my neck. I have an abscess. I'm trying to die actively. So like, fuck it. I'll do whatever it is you say. And so I embarked down this road of trusting and trying to believe in God. And along the way, something catches fire, right? And then what I notice is like, I can see God in everything and in everyone all the time. And now I'm like, am I mentally stable still? Right? Like I'm like, I had like a whole month where I was very nervous. Like I felt this peace, which was crazy cool, right? For a drug addict and alcoholic to find internal peace, I was like, dude, whatever the fuck I'm doing, I'm gonna keep doing it, because this internal peace thing is the shit, right? But no, I had like some serious internal dialogues where like, dude, I think I'm losing it, right? And it's really cool though, and like today, it's morphed and grown to where like, I'm so thankful that when I'm presented with challenges today, most of the time I get to see how God is showing up in this person as a challenge. And like, is this challenge actually an opportunity? Oh man, wait till you get the total mind fucker of when the challenge that is presented is actually God presenting opportunity. Woo, that's a good one. But no, it's really cool. And like it changes the whole perspective. And dude, if we rewind to you talking about the trees, right? And like, man, what I hear is a guy who's like really in touch with God is everywhere and everything and in everyone. and he's also grounded in the present moment. Really hard to get fucked up when you're good at those two things. You know what I mean? Really hard to relapse, really hard to be miserable, really hard to not be a good friend, you know?
Not be open to all, right?
Yeah.
And like, that's one of the big things. Like, man, let's give it a whirl.
Yeah. And that's what we're fucking doing here, man. That's what 4D is, right? It's like, we're not saying we're the gurus or we know all the answers. We're like, yo, dude, we tried this. This worked. We've practiced it. We studied it here. This is our experience. Seems like you're struggling with a similar thing. Give it a whack. Yep. Right. And like, we're here to guide, coach, teach, and like explore with you. Right. And if at any point, anyone on our team believes that they are the end all be all and they know everything, like they will no longer be on our team, right? Like that's not how we do things, right? And like we're here to grow and learn together, and like that's what we teach our clients. And what a cool opportunity for all of us. I'm just so grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% grateful. I think every time we talk about 4D, I'm like, man, I'm just happy that we're doing this. This is great.
And none of it would be possible without like my interactions with Brenda, right? My interactions with you, right? And like to rewind where I was talking about, like in my meditations, how I find the answers, right? And like, trust and believe y'all came up in meditations more than once to where I was like, okay, this is how this needs to look moving forward, right? And then like Gil just being presented like at the perfect time in my life, right? Where like, and dude, I could go down, I could do a 8-hour just Austin lecture on like when God randomly showed up, right? Like, and I wouldn't be able to touch half of the areas, right? And then there's all the areas that I don't see, right? That I'm still asleep to, as Brenda talked about, that I'm still asleep to, that I'm not aware that like that's even happening. And like, man, I'm excited for the day when I figure those out too.
Yeah, you drive towards that awareness, right? And like, that's the continued seeking, is to really drive to grow that awareness. Because like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if Brenda has a difference of opinion, but like, I mean, I'm probably going to wake up, fall asleep, wake up, fall asleep, wake up, fall asleep, you know, like it's just...
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, you know, like how many times do I fall asleep during my day? How many times am I able to, go through my day and recognize that I've fallen asleep, and then, you know, try to even become conscious throughout my day and know that I don't have to go into meditation in order to become conscious. Is it easier? Yeah, but I don't have to do that. So one thing I've been practicing is just like, okay, like, what am I seeing? Okay, who is the person looking through my eyes right now? And just that kind of snaps me back in. Or if I take something at like ask myself a question, what character am I playing right now? Okay, is that the character I want to be playing right now? Can I choose a different character? Yeah, of course I can. So, put that new character on. You know, I'm just a body. I mean, so, but.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's fucking fired.
Yeah.
It is. It helps.
Who's the one looking through my eyes right now? A lot of times when I'm fucked off, it's the ego, you know, some sort of ego that's telling me this is bad and fuck that. And like, you know, who's the one looking through my eyes right now? My ego ruins things for me all the time. And dude, about 1/100th of as bad as it used to be, but it's still, now I'm more aware of it, right? I'm more consciously aware of like when ego is potentially messing up things that maybe God's trying to present to me.
You know, what's funny too, is like you talk about that the same, right? With the ego. And I listened to a speaker one time and he talked about it and he called it a goofy suit, right? Because he was talking about Disneyland or Disney World or something like that. And he talks about how he's got to take off and put on his goofy suits. And it really mushes down my ego a little bit when I'm calling myself a goofy suit, right? Like when I'm sitting here and be like, who's looking through this goofy suit today? Who's looking through like work Brett, right? Or relationship Brett or podcast Brett or whatever, you know what I mean? Because we all love to develop all these different things outside of that divine piece of what we actually are. But yeah, when I call it a goofy suit, I always just end up like, like laughing at myself a little bit because it's just like, again, I'm not going to say I smash the ego that way, but like it's definitely like a flick to it to be like, hey, you know, you're not in charge.
Yeah.
Right.
I know. That's the thing. Like we have to like literally put our foot down and remind our egos who we are and like who's in charge. I mean, it's that's our conscious mind. That's the beauty of it. We were given a conscious mind for this exact reason. So
yeah,
that's
cool.
Awesome. One other thing that, you know, in my journey that kind of helped me as far the scripture, judge not by appearances. So growing up, I always thought that was, oh, don't judge this person because they're too short. Don't judge this thing because of whatever. But through my spiritual understanding, what that actually means is, hey, even though I've set my aim to whatever, be healthy, and something pops up along its way to, a circumstance or a condition or a thought or a feeling, don't judge that as it appears to be, but judge it righteously. And righteously just really means right thinking. Judge it with right thinking, not by your senses. So
yeah, that's kind of like what you were saying too, right? Like if you can see everything as
God,
as the opportunity that it lies in front of you, instead of like, God, this is so hard, or this is so bad, or this is so good, or this is so exciting, whatever it is. Can you get through it as the opportunity? But also, like, man, there's just so much work around all this stuff, right? Like, or am I walking through this opportunity, right? Am I showing up? And it's something that you had previously said to Brenda, is that like, am I attacking just to get the thing, right? So like
doing to get.
Yeah. So am I and it's one of the things that I actually wrote. It was like a quote that I put down, like, we are not virtuous with intent of virtue. So if my intention is to get to that thing, right? Like I'm never, you know what I mean? And
but it's recognizing you already have it. Yeah.
It's already given to you, right? Like it's already there. So, but like, it's so hard to just shut this thing up to be like, no, you have to show your virtue to these people. You have to show your worth to these people, right? Like, and the way that you do that, Brett, is like, this guy's really good at doing this, and this guy's, and all those goofy suits, right? And like, this is how I'm going to show Austin that I'm important to 4D wellness, right? This is how I'm going to show Dustin that I know these things, my partner that I know these things. And it's just like, dude, shut up. Just shut up. And like, I know I probably sound like a lunatic right now, but you guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
That internal conversation like we're having right now. And it's just like,
it's the spiral. It's the spiral. Like when you're spiraling, it's hard to like catch the spiral and stop spiraling. But, I mean, the be still, it does help a lot.
For sure.
I mean, I like when you're like, and knowing you already have it, right? And smiling. Like that's the Brenda quote right there, right? And it's the truth, right? And so a lot of times when we work with clients, and Brenda said this at the very, very beginning, it's hard to see that you already have it. And like, it's hard to identify with the successful version or the image in your head, or as I say every single day, 100 times, the aim in the direction we're headed, right? To identify with that is sometimes really difficult early in sobriety or early in any sort of struggle. And to know that you already have it is a difficult thing. And so, thankfully, we have a lot of systems in place to build confidence and to get these little victories and to start accomplishing these little tiny things every day that help us build some self-esteem, some traction, help us pick a direction, pick an aim. And then it becomes easier to go, I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's something called ask formations. Have you guys heard of those?
No.
Oh.
So it helps to... For some people that struggle with the I am affirmations, it helps to make them a little easier to digest. So why am I so healthy? Or why am I so...
I have heard of these.
You have? Okay, yeah. So they can be helpful for some people. Or why am I so wealthy? Or there's another way to put a spin on these even. Crap, I'm drawing a blank on it right now.
I think you actually did one of these with a client we had. I almost said his name. Shouldn't do that. A client we had. Good catch. A client we had at the very beginning. He came to me. He was like, yo, Brenda did this because he struggled really hard with self-esteem. And he was like, yo, Brenda did this ask affirmation. I can't exactly remember what it was.
Oh, you know what I think I told him? I think I said, I wasn't an ask affirmation. This one was a, I'm willing to believe I am.
Yep.
So you can say, or I'm choosing to believe.
Yeah, that's the one.
And so it's not, being so cocky and saying I am, even though you are. I mean, there's another reality of you kind of living that. And so, because you're all things everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
all at once.
Let's go.
Dude, it's a crazy thing that we could sit here and probably talk for like 8 straight hours on all this and all these different topics and all these different avenues to come down to the exact same real simple thing that we are, right? Like I am, however you want to put it, but yeah, all interconnected, all things. I am you, you are me, all of that stuff. And it's when you find yourself in that mindset, sometimes it's just like you had said when you realized like it's all like, oh, I got to figure this out, right? Like, but like,
oh fuck,
yeah, the oh fuck moment. Sometimes you find beauty in that, especially like if, again, it's just a continued work thing, right? This is continued effort that you put towards all things, man. Whether it be like actual tangible things in the gym to break up energy shifts and like all that stuff that we've previously talked about, but also taking that mentality that I think a lot of people can take, right? Like a lot of people can be like, I know what I have to do here when I'm at the track, when I'm at the gym, when I'm eating, when I'm doing all these things. I know what I have to do. Take that mentality to your brain. And like know that you can do these things because you are all of these things, right? And it just takes practice to continue to see, continue to search, continue to actively. That's why affirmations exist. That's why all of these things exist, to continue to do stuff. Journaling, right? Stopping in the mid meditation. That hit me the wrong way. It weirded me out. I'm not that guy, but like I'm gonna have to do it now, right?
Yeah,
right.
I knew you wouldn't like that. Just so you know, a lot of our clients have been plugged with that a little bit.
That's fine, and it's fine, right? I'm open to that because like clearly what I told you, I can't stamp that in my subconscious brain, or I can't even stamp it to remember it how to write it in the morning, right? So I'm like, damn, I know I came across something, but I don't know what it is. So therefore, like, this is just a different avenue that I have to try, that I have to put effort to. And maybe it works brilliantly for me, but maybe it doesn't. And then I continue to move forward in a different direction. And I'm sure the piece of me that is God, that is divine, will show me where to go.
And sometimes I notice too, if doesn't feel right to come out of meditation, I stay in it longer, I get a fuller answer. So, I mean, there's no right or wrong way of doing anything we're talking about.
You just do,
You just do it. You try different methods. You listen to a lot of people you trust and believe in. And again, right, like, let me circle back around to like our opening line, like, the idea is just to believe in something, right? And whether it's within you, out of you, something completely fucking different, right? Like, our goal and our main objective is to get you to believe in something outside of you or inside of you that's going to help you. You're not in this alone, right? And that's what this team is built on, right? And we all got slightly different views on essentially the same thing.
Yep.
Part of me wishes we had Gil here. Right? Like, that dude loves the Bible, right? And like, hell yeah, right? And so like, to each their own, and everybody do their own thing. And like, that's why there's so many of us on the team, right? We're each gonna fit different roles for different people at different times in their life. And I know my belief is always changing and always evolving and growing. And
cool.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Call it a day. Cool.
Hell yeah.
So that's our podcast for today, man.